Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at part 29 of the Hercules story from Ritchie's Fabulae Faciles. Now this chapter is called A Miraculous Hail Storm. So you might remember at this point in the story, Hercules is in the middle of his 10th labor. He's trying to get the oxen of Geryon and bring them back. So he's been sailing all over the place, finding the oxen, and now we have his return trip right after he actually has them. So before we dive into the story, like I always tell you with any of these stories, the first things you want to do is make sure you have the vocab under control. So either find a commentary and a vocab list on your own, or just make one way or another. It's really hard to understand what's going on if you don't know what the words mean. So that should always be sort of a starting point, just practicing. The second thing you want to do is try to find, if you can, someone in class, if you're a student, or just anyone, to practice reading the story aloud. Even if you're by yourself, you could do it. But you want to practice your speaking and your pronunciation. And if you can find that person and read it back to you, you can work on your listening skills as well. You never want to shut those off. But the last thing I always tell you is to try the read and reread method. So read through it once. Write down any vocab words you don't know, any grammar you're not sure of, anything where you're stuck. And then at the end of your read, look at that list, go back, look up all the words so that you at least have the vocab, try to figure out the grammar you're looking at, and then read the story again. And on that second, third, fourth, however many times it takes you to do, you should be able to read it or get to a point where you can read it without needing any dictionary help and any grammar help, right? That's how you know you have the story really under control, when you can read it and understand it for what it is. So if you haven't done that, go do that and come back. But now we're going to dive into the story and translate it together. And hopefully if you've already read it and hit that point, maybe your second, third time through where you feel comfortable with it, as long as your translation is somewhere in the ballpark of mine, you can probably feel pretty good that you're on the right track. Again, not that mine's perfect, but at least it'll give you a guide of where you might want to be. Okay, so the story starts like this. You have tum Hercules, boves per Hispaniam et Liguriam compellere constituit. Postquam egetur omnia parata sunt, boves ex insula ad continentem transportavit. So you're saying then Hercules, he decided, constituent, right? Perfect tense. He decided to compellere, to sort of drive, right, the oxen, the boes, through Hispania and Liguria. Now, Hispania is modern day Spain, right? It's using the Roman names. Liguria is that region, sort of like Provence, France, right? The old Roman province of southern France. So he's talking about driving at the land route from Spain into Greece, right, and kind of passing through the Alps, all these things. That's his decision here. Then you have postquam, so afterwards, therefore. Omnia parata sunt is just perfect passive. Everything was prepared. So you might say, therefore, after everything was prepared, he transportavit. He transported the oxen, the boes is your direct object, from the island, ex insula, ad continentem, to the continent, right? He has to get it onto the mainland from the island. Then it continues, and you have Ligures autem, gens bellicosissima, dum ille per fines eorum interfacit, magnas copias coegerunt, atque eum longius progredi prohibebant. So the Ligurians, however, right, and Ligurians are the group of people living in Liguria, right? They're described as a gens bellicosissima, a most warlike people. The bellicosissima is your superlative, right, adjective. So a most warlike people. While he was, and again, the ille there is Hercules, while he was traveling, iter facit, he's making a journey, literally, but he was traveling through their lands, fines eorum. So while he's traveling through their lands, they collected, right? It's perfect tense, magnas copias, lots of troops. You can almost think like a big number of troops. The copias there can be supplies, but it really means troops here. And they prohibebant, they were prohibiting or preventing him, eum, to proceed further. Progredi is your deponent infinitive, right? So it looks passive, but they're preventing him from proceeding or progressing further. You might see longius, okay? So they're not letting him go any further, they're stopping him. Then you continue, you have Hercules, magnam difficultatem habebat, barbari enim in loci superioribus constituerant, et saxa talaque in eum coniciebant. So you're saying Hercules, he had a habebat, he had a magnum difficultatem, a great difficulty, right? So he's in a tough spot. The barbarians, the barbarian meaning Ligurians, and the enim there means for. So you might say for the barbarians, constituerant, they had, it almost means like they had stood or had taken a stand, is kind of one way to do it, in the loci superioribus, in the higher places, right, or on the higher places. They're above him on these passes. Remember that area kind of runs into the Alps. And coniciebant, they were throwing saxa talaque, so rocks, saxa, and tela, and weapons at him, in eum, into him. And weapons here probably means like arrows, spears, things like that. So they're shooting stuff at him, and they're rolling boulders on him, okay? Then you have ille quidem paene omnem spem salutis deposuerat, sed tempore opportunissimo Jupiter imbrem lapidem ingentium e caelo demissit. So indeed, he, deposuerat, he had put aside, right? Literally think like deposited, right? He had set aside omnem, or almost set aside rather, paene means almost, all hope, omnem spem, that's a direct object, so all hope of safety, meaning he thought he was going to die. But at the tempore opportunissimo, so at the most opportune time, Jupiter, right, Jupiter, he demissit, he sent down an imbrem, a rain. And it's a rain, a caelo, from the sky of lapidum ingentium, of huge stones. So it's probably hail, right? Which is why they call this the miraculous hailstone. So the icy, rocky, hail starts falling down. Although in this description, it makes it sound like boulders are falling from the sky. Okay. Then you have he tanta vi ceciderant ut magnum numerum legurum occiderent. Ipse tamen Hercules ut in talibus rebus accidere consuevit, nihil incommodi capit. Okay, so these, meaning the rocks, right, the sort of hailstone, that's the last thing we were talking about. These fell, ceciderant, with such force, so tanta vi, with such force. Now the such there, the tanta, the sort of qualifier, is setting up a result clause, which is why you have the ut there. And it's also why you have occiderant, right, the subjunctive. So they fell with such force with the result that, or so that, they killed occiderant, magnum numerum, a great number of Ligurians. So they get killed by these giant hailstones. Okay. However, Hercules himself, ipse Hercules, then you have this side thought, and you have ut, right? Here, when you have ut in the indicative, so consuevit is just perfect tense, it's not subjunctive. When you have it like that, it just means as. It's not setting up any sort of subjunctive clause. So you're saying Hercules himself, however, as consuevit, as you might say, like, as it was accustomed, accidere, to happen in such things, in talibus rebus, meaning as it normally happened, right? Because he's lucky and he's a demigod. So Hercules, capit nihil incommodi. He took no harm. It's kind of one translation. Literally, it says he took nothing of incommodi, of an inconvenience. So it's kind of a weird way of saying that he took no harm. Okay, so Jupiter sends down the hailstorm, the rocks falling from the sky kill the Ligurians, and Hercules is able to escape. Again, it's sort of that divine intervention, where otherwise he was in a really tough spot. So hopefully this translation made sense, and you were able to work your way through it. If you have any questions at all, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to help. But otherwise, keep practicing it. Like I said, do the read and reread method, and you should hit a spot where you're able to do this without too much trouble and feel really confident with it. Good luck.